FCS Fans Nation, welcome to your Friday night FCS pregame / it's playoff season, which means we have a watch along. I am joined by the hostess with the mostest, the most unbiased Bison fan in the land, Matthew Frazee. How the hell are you, Matt?
I'm good, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're kind of laggy now, but you were good back screen.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I might lag a little bit, but
fine.
I'm doing well, man. What a game we got going so far. Little disappointing on the injury front, but so far so good. How are you doing this evening, my man? Looks like you're getting your drink on.
I'm doing good. Rushed home from work going like, God, why couldn't this game start an hour later? But I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I'm drinking a little John Bar blended scotch tonight. I've been breaking out the brown liquor for the playoffs. That's been we've graduated from beer. The regular season's over. It's scotch time.
Yeah, absolutely. Scotch. Love
Scotch,
the way
scotch,
it goes. Oh my goodness.
Right. So to everybody that's, this is your first time in or your return people, we just want to say, as always, we have lots of podcasts, especially here at the FCS Fans Nation Network, that you listen to every week. We are grateful and happy that you end and bookend your week with us here at the pregame show. Closest thing we got to like a game day show. So we're just pregaming the games tomorrow, or like you can see on my TV, or when the game's back on, we'll have going on live here on the screen for you guys. It's totally fan interactive. So if you got a question, let us know in the comment section, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And we'll do our best to get around to all of them. But it being the playoffs, I think we got a lot to talk about, starting with our man in the stands, Jamie Williams. How is it?
Man.
Jamie, can you hear us?
What's up, fellas?
How's the game going?
Can you hear me at all, Chris?
Yeah, we can hear you. You and the band.
Okay, I'll come in. I'll come back after the band.
Deal.
Put me in the background for now.
Well, as you can tell, the JMU Marching Dukes, or whatever they're called, are at full roar right now in Bridgeport.
They are not messing around. That was insane.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Well, they should be happy, man. I mean, they're up 14-3. Honestly, though, like as just the casual fan, I'm just really disappointed in those early injuries. I'm not saying Montana was going to win the game, but it certainly takes a light out of it, right? Like if you're a Dukes fan, you of course want an entire clean game, but I don't know, man. It just kind of takes it out of it a little bit. There's definitely a different feel to Montana. Obviously, when a starting quarterback goes out for really any team. So we saw Montana, who played Southern Utah. They beat them by 1 point. I just tweeted this out. When they didn't have Humphreys playing. That's how essential for any team a quarterback is. Obviously, Humphreys, you got to slide with your feet, man. You can't go down with head. It's just a little bit disappointing just because, I just wanted to see more of a clean game. I think Montana here is just in a lot of trouble. The Dukes can really now just straight up focus on the run game, and they really shouldn't have any problems, honestly. So,
yeah.
Are you kind of worried at all for JMU at this point?
No, I mean, like Tom Lakey here in the comment section. It's only halftime, but game is over. Grizz backup quarterback is not good enough. I mean, he's a true freshman, I believe, or at least a redshirt freshman. I know he's a freshman. And Matt, you know this because we had this happen last year. I tend to believe teams are in it late, especially if they're good teams. Like I'm one of the last people to give up on a team. This game feels over. It feels like Montana just doesn't have the offense to put up points. They might not surrender another point to James Madison the whole rest of the game. They might not. They probably will still surrender maybe another 7-14. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough because they've already allowed 14 in and they've only put up 3. So could they get lucky? Probably. They still have Flowers, who's dangerous. If the defense keeps holding them, they're going to have some guys that are dangerous in the punt return game. We did see James Madison kind of lose last year based on a lot of special teams kind of fluky. Well, I guess we're more Sam Houston making plays special teams wise, but I just don't see it. I'm sorry. No. I don't want to give up on stuff, but it would take a miracle for Montana to pull this off. Now let's see what Bobby Hauck has in that locker room. Bobby Hauck could completely light these players up, say some like, you're Montana, you're the pride of the FCS, rah, 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 I'm Bobby Hauck crap. And maybe they come out looking like a different team, but I just don't see. Maybe that works if your defense is the issue. Defense isn't the issue. It's your offense. I don't think offenses get as impacted by those kind of like get psyched pumps. So
Yeah, James Madison they're a lot like North Dakota State in a lot of ways, but one of the ways you can beat them to like open things up is not be singular, right? Obviously. One of the big things with Montana when Humphreys is in there is James Madison has to respect the pass, especially with that unique kind of fake runoff, that shotgun option look Montana puts out there in terms of long stretch run or quarterback may roll out, play action. The thing with it is if you're not going to have any remote passing threat, James Madison will just key in with a very athletic front seven. And as James Madison fans have told me, they've said our secondary is a little susceptible to kind of the deep ball or maybe giving up a big play. Maybe we don't get out or maybe we got some young guys in coverage. So if all of that is eliminated, maybe the weakness of the Dukes, I don't see how Montana is going to find a way to. It would have to be a turnover fest. And the Dukes play clean football. This is not James Madison. Like I said, the game was over with James Madison, Sam Houston. You did not in the spring, right? Yep. But this isn't the same scenario.
No,
I mean,
feels completely different.
Yeah, with injury, nobody got injured with Sam Houston. They just came out, made adjustments, and they made the change. So I'm just a little disappointed in that because I thought it would be a better game all the way out. Like some of our users are saying here, man, I think it's going to be something. Yeah, James Madison should be able to score at least 2 more touchdowns. Tom Lakey here, great comment, 38-10, just because Montana's not going to have any offense. And 7-3, the Grizz had the ball. They were trying to drive to maybe go get another field goal, touchdown, and then Humphreys is out, and you're like, oh, man. So what are you going to do? And looks like the Dukes will likely go play the winner of ETSU either in Bridgeforth or North Dakota State. I think you and I and many folks will just think NDSU is probably going to roll with that one. So honestly, I'll put on the bias hat. If I'm an NDSU fan, I'm just watching the Dukes right now for like, okay, what are strengths? What are weaknesses? ETSU fans should be doing the same. But I got a feel for the Grizz, man. I just feel bad. I think they really had a shot in this game, and I actually picked them to win. I personally want James Madison to win because I think it'd be fun in the Dome for JMU NDSU with like this huge rivalry that we've had for 5 years. But I felt like the Grizz had a good shot. I really did. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, for my bracket's sake, I had James Madison winning the whole thing this year.
Yep.
And for the FCS sake, I mean, I'm going full Grizz. James Madison's leaving, right? Like, I love me some Dukes. I picked him to win the whole thing, but I'm not going to root for him to go out with our title and leave. Bet your butt no. So
that's the thing, right? Like, okay, so we need to ask this question probably next week, right? Let's say if Sam Houston advances, North Dakota State and JMU, we have to ask the fans, what is worse? North Dakota State reclaiming the title and dealing with all of their fans, all of their nonsense, all of the bragging, everything. Or is it worse to give the title to a team that's going to the FBS in Sam Houston and James Madison? I don't know. If I was an NDSU fan, I'd hate us, but I also wouldn't want a team for the rest of their life to say, yeah, it just proves how good we are. We ran the FCS, so we had to get out of there and move on up. I don't want to hear that junk. Right? I don't want that. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Should we try to get Jamie in here one more time?
It looks like Jamie is in a quieter space. There he is. Mr. Williams, how is Bridgeforth?
Yeah. I wear my chain to the game before the game. I sip champagne for the World Cup. Oh, yeah, I'm here to start. I pray on the hill. And
can you hear us?
Most kids worship us.
We might have to.
Yeah, I got you. You got me?
We got you.
It still says I'm backstage.
Oh, nope. You're front and center, my man.
Check me out, dog. Look.
Hey, Jamie, at the stadium, is the vibe this game is over?
Bring me in for like a minute.
We might have to pop him out, Chris. That's I don't think that noise is going to keep any of our streamers on. They're going to be muting us left and right. That's pretty brutal.
Well, we
could have you, Jamie.
We're trying new things here on the show, guys.
Yeah,
where it's a learning experience. We try to get you a sideline reporter. He might not be as beautiful as Heather Cox or Aaron Andrews, but god dang, he's right there next to him.
Well, that's the thing is like, this is the thing with Friday Night FCS. This is not our podcast. This isn't the Chris Football Show. Nothing's edited. Nothing's scripted. We just try things, right?
Yeah.
Patrick knows. He tunes in every week. He knows.
Does Patrick miss a single podcast on any of the shows?
No,
I think he's the network's biggest fan.
He's a super fan, and the next contest I run, I'm gonna rig it, and I'm just gonna give him the prize because he's the man. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on James Madison, Montana. Let's just real quick, I'm sure there's some Montana fans that are tuned in or will tune in and listen. Is there any way Montana can come back on this before we move on to the other games this weekend?
I just don't think so, man. Like that, this feels like Montana. It also feels like they're a little deflated. Just remember, even with South Dakota State against Sam Houston, there was a lightning delay. Remember that? It was over an hour long. And South Dakota State still couldn't put enough together to compete with Sam Houston all the way to the end. Now it went all the way close to the end, but you get a whole hour plus. They had like an hour 20 minutes, honestly, of like, okay, we got a backup quarterback. Let's rewrite the script. Halftime, to be able to just adjust this quick, you got to get those boys pumped up and going. I don't think you can do it, man. I think the Dukes are going to key in. They're going to be able to just focus solely on the run. The Dukes will play, in my opinion, probably a pretty boring second half. I mean, that's what I would do if I was them. So I think this one's gonna go in the books, and I think the Dukes likely will end up going to Fargo. I think because NDSU will probably beat ATSU next week. So
yeah, which to be fair, as a neutral, what a matchup, right? Like,
absolutely,
that's former national championship. Like, you got basically the team of the decade against their next best competitor throughout the decade. Like, as a neutral, you got to be excited about that game being a possibility. Let's move on to some of the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Man. No, I was just saying likely end up the Friday night game just because ESPN they've given NDSU the Friday night game just because of the environment in the semifinal. I think every year except maybe 2011 and possibly 2012, but since 2013 on, if NDSU's in the semis, they want that virtually sellout crowd. Which I know about a lot of the comments coming in will be like, NDSU sellout, haha, your attendance blows. But the semifinal game, they all show up. It's the event. So. And especially with James Madison in town, that thing's going to be packed. So
yeah. So let's talk North Dakota State, East Tennessee State. I don't know if you saw this. Our friend FCS Radio 1, Kevin Marshall, maybe his best work of all time. And you live in Fargo, or basically the Fargo DMA. Is he spot on where he's like, you see all these people writing, like, where's the fan interest? Because, like, I guess you were saying this was like their lowest attended game since like the mid 2000s last week. And he brought up like kind of smashing those guys and goes like the same people that are writing where's the fan attendance are the same people that have been telling the fans they shouldn't embrace this level of football anymore. So of course fan attendance is low. Do you kind of get that feeling out there too? Or is that kind of people from around the country looking in? Or is that kind of also the feel in Fargo?
Maybe a little bit. I honestly think if you just take the more on the ground level, I think the media is always going to do that job. I think they're always going to promote the FBS, talk about attendance, and say maybe it's level of competition. But I think the big factor is really simple. The Fargo Dome experience really hasn't changed except the price in 10 years. Let's talk about experience. Are you gonna are you having good competitive games with fresh faces? Not really. Mostly it's blowouts up until the semifinal or South Dakota State comes to town. Do you have updated food options? Do you have beer options? Do you have some lounges that have been built or upgraded? Do you have upgraded seating instead of the stern strict red and blue seats which are made of hard plastic? Have you had any updates to maybe the intro or some of the environmental things, t-shirt toss outs? And then the answer is no. Have you updated tailgating to where it's more flexible, to where you can tailgate for more than 6 hours, to where you don't have to clean up your trash half hour early and you're kind of treated like a toddler? Is parking improved? No, the only thing that's been added are a bunch of metal detectors, which make it very hard to get into the dome efficiently and quickly. So it's a super big inconvenience, and price has gone up. So my overall takeaway from North Dakota State is the city of Fargo and NDSU has done nothing to make the fan experience better. And they've kind of taken things for granted by just increasing prices. And the market is just correcting itself in that realm. I think you will get a virtual sellout with the semifinal game, but a lot of people, especially with COVID, they're prioritizing different things. And they're willing to say, hey, I'd rather just be at home in my makeshift bar when the game's over at halftime and go and do whatever. And I'm not going to pay $90 for 2 tickets. This is the FCS level. I mean, I'm not paying that kind of money. So I think that's kind of where North Dakota State is at. That's where it is. There's no change to the experience. And a lot of people don't like watching the same movie over and over again. So, but diehards like myself, you'll always have that 11, 12K for sure. I bet you'll have horrible numbers this week. Everyone will freak out, and the semifinal will sell out for James Madison. So
So speaking of this week, you've got SoCon champion ETSU Sounds like you're already looking ahead. Hopefully the team's not. I mean, North Dakota State better than most. Is there a way ETSU can win this? Is there any chinks in the armor that they, if you're going down the column, offensive line, check, whatever. Are there a weakness where ETSU might have the advantage, and if they scheme it right, could pull this off? Because you look at all these matchups, this one kind of feels like the one that's going to be the most. I mean, none of these lines were single digits. This one feels like it's going to be the biggest blowout.
Yeah, this the thing is, I've just seen the rinse, wash, and repeat of a team like this coming up here before. ETSU, they don't scare me much with the passing game. They rely on the running a lot. North Dakota State, top 3 rushing defense right there. Another thing with ETSU, 7 other games have been comebacks in some form or fashion. Not as good as comeback as Kennesaw, but they're not a team that starts super fast. So Mike Mafeely tweeted it out. The defensive line for ETSU, you're looking at 250 pounds, 265, 252. I just see it go to 2017 semi, unless you see a Missouri State versus UT Martin, 6 turnovers, 10 turnovers, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If NDSU plays sloppy behind crap, which hasn't been seen in, I guess I don't even know when. It just, to me, Chris, I'll call me biased, call me unbiased. NDSU should be able to run a lot of just straight run game. Cam Miller throw the ball 10 times, and the strengths and weaknesses of both of these teams benefit NDSU almost in every check mark. So there's a reason it started, I think, at like 22.5. I think it's up to 25.5 is what I saw somebody tweet out in terms of the sports book. So maybe NDSU doesn't cover that, but I don't think ETSU is going to come in and shock the world. So just seen this too many times, whether it's Wofford 2017 or, Lehigh or others. And I'm not saying ETSU is bad as them, but it's just, you don't know what you know until you get in the dome and you play the bye, and it's really different. It takes a team with a pretty shifty, not pure dual threat quarterback, offense and defensive lines that match NDSU 100%, and then you can get open guys in space in the passing game to ease NDSU's front 7 off your run game. And I don't think ETSU has the capability. And then I also think defensively, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the run enough. So I could go on all night with that, but we should probably go on to some more exciting games, don't you think?
Yeah, agreed. A reminder to the people watching in, we've got a lot of you tuning in. If you have questions you want answered, ask them in the the Facebook or YouTube chat, and we'll get around to them. Let's treat the number 1 seed with respect to deserves by talking about it third.
Yeah, right.
Sam Houston State hasn't lost a game in god dang how many days has it been? And they got Montana State. Now, I have the luxury of talking to a lot of Montana State people. They're starting to feel this game is slowly creeping more and more Sam Houston State's way. But you look at these matchups, you probably thought Montana, James Madison had the closest chance of being close. Obviously, with the injury to Humphreys and to Chem, we already touched on that game, seems over. So this is kind of that next game where if you're looking for a good game, you can sit down on Saturday and watch and have enjoyment through all 4 quarters. It's probably this game. What are kind of your thoughts and takeaways on the Bearcats versus the Bobcats? Just battle of the cats, B-Cats.
Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts more, man, just because I am so opposite of the rest of the country. I think Sam Houston's going to kill him. I'm on an island. Montana State, when I saw them play the Grizz, I saw a team this is proven. They don't pass the ball well, which is Sam Houston's weakness. So maybe they pass better than expected because Sam Houston's secondary is not good. But Sam Houston's front 7 is good. And I feel like Sam Houston's going to be able to key in on Montana State. I know they're big and they've got size and they can run the ball. I think they're going to be able to key in the way they did against South Dakota State in that title game or NDSU in the quarterfinal, where the quarterback's not really a threat. And I think they're a lot better than Montana State in terms of that offense and defensive side. And then on the other side of the ball, I know Montana State's defense is really good, but I saw the Grizz do exactly what Sam Houston likes to do. Wide receivers in open space, use the running back on edge runs, and they tore Montana State apart that way. So I think this is a style matchup nightmare for the Bobcats, but a lot of people just don't agree with me. Vegas doesn't agree with me. So you know them more than me, the Bobcats, for sure. Am I wrong in this? Am I the only person out there and I'm just crazy for it?
No, I think here's the caveat, right? Montana State has the possibility and the players. In my opinion, they're the deepest roster in the Big Sky for sure.
Yep.
I just think they are slumping at the wrong time. I mean, you look at their last couple games, started with my team against the Idaho Vandals at home. They barely sneak away with that one in the fourth quarter, a 7-point win. Then they get just absolutely curb stomped by their rivals in Missoula. The UT Martin game they won, but it was never really impressive. And that's all, to be fair to them, that was on the point of their quarterback, Matt McKay, announcing he was going in the transfer portal. So now they're like playing a backup quarterback this whole time. I just think there's too much going wrong for them at the end of the season. They're just not set up. I mean, we're seeing what's happened to Montana right now without a quarterback. Like, right. I don't even want to know what Montana State, who has notoriously been a very good team that was a quarterback away from making the move. They still don't have that quarterback. So this is about as far as they will go, I think. And like you said, we got to see Sam Houston live in Frisco. We also got to watch them in the spring season. The playoffs were a little bit easier to follow all of it because it was more condensed. There wasn't games really overlapping as much as there is this year. Sam Houston's just a better team. I think Sam Houston is the opposite of Montana State, where they kind of had some issues in the beginning. They were tied against SFA. They weren't really winning by how much you would like them to, but everybody else around them was losing. So they kind of like snuck into that number one spot. But I mean, they're clicking right now. I have the utmost confidence. They might beat Montana State more than North Dakota State beats ETSU. I'm hoping I'm wrong, because I'm Big Sky or bust this year. Like, the Big Sky hasn't won a conference or a national title since 2010. It's been over a decade. Like, I'm pulling for somebody in the Big Sky to win one. Montana's about to probably fall out of it. Last hope is going to be Montana State. So bet your butt I'll be pulling for them. Kind of like I'm pulling for Montana tonight. But I kind of like Montana right now. I think the Big Sky runs out of horses in the end, which has kind of been their MO the last couple of years. So I think Sam Houston advances. I think you nailed it. If they struggle with Montana has a really good D. If there was a defense you would say like front seven wise in the playoffs is about as even as them, you're probably looking at Sam Houston State or North Dakota State. So I just don't think Montana State's going to be able to deal with it. They couldn't deal with it in Montana. I don't think they're going to be able to deal with it in Bowers.
Yeah, we agree on that assessment. Would it shock me for it to be closer? No, because Vegas is rarely wrong. Like, whatever they have it at 5.5 or whatever.
They're not in the money. They're not in the business of losing money.
Yeah, no, they're not in the business of losing money. So would it be closer? No surprise. But in Bowers, where they haven't lost, I think it was like since 1986 or something. I really think Sam Houston's going to win that game. I'll be shocked beyond belief. I really think now that Humphreys is gone, James Madison is going to win tonight. I really believe NDSU will win tomorrow. And I'll be very shocked if Sam Houston loses. So the real question, Chris, as I guess I'm setting up just the segue, the real debate is the next game. Is it not South Dakota State and Villanova? I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I kind of got thoughts of it from Kyler on the podcast. Jamie was texting me a bit, but tell me what you think about that as you got that Jackrabbit gear, I know, on your end.
Yeah, so I will be completely honest on this, right? Like, out of every team in the playoff, and I mean literally every team, Villanova is the only team I've watched 0 seconds of this year. I did not watch any of their game against Holy Cross, where I did watch Sacred Heart or Holy Cross. Like, their games have just been, when they were on ESPN, they were, when other big games were happening. I don't have Flow Sports. So, like, I know very little about the Wildcats. But I just feel like South Dakota State really kind of proved it. I know Sac State came back kind of in the end to make that game look closer than it was, really after the second half. South Dakota State, I think, maybe came out sleeping. I don't think that'll be the case this year. Stiglmeier's not going to let them do that 2 weeks in a row. And at the end of the day, like, so what? Sac State came back. Sac State was a 4 seed and won the Big Sky. Like, that was the Big Sky champion.
Yeah, that was just bad play calling by South Dakota State. Like, they just started pulling at Atlanta Falcons and just passing when they were running for like 6 yards of carry. If anything, the bad coaching calls of South Dakota State let Sac State back in. So that game shouldn't have been as close as it did in the end. And it wasn't as close as what the score showed, in my opinion.
No, 100%. I mean, even at the end there, it didn't feel like Sac State was going to get it. even when
No.
they're pulling close. It was like it never felt like you're like last year with Sam Houston, right? Like every touchdown that happened against James Madison, I kept texting you. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, momentum. And by the time they were like had made up like 17 of the 28 points they needed or whatever, you were even saying like, holy crap, I think this might happen. Like you could just tell the momentum was shifting to where Sam Houston was probably going to win that game. It never felt like that with Sac State. It felt like South Dakota was just like running out the clock, and Sac State was like just really trying to make it look pretty. So they didn't have the stigma of being that team that gets seeded and then loses. I think South Dakota State's proved they probably should have been a seed. Villanova's really riding that James Madison win from earlier in the season. I know they played well the rest of the year as well, but I like the Jackrabbits here. I do. I don't think, like you said, I think this is definitely going to be the closest game most likely. Spreads, I think, will have 5.5, 6. I'll probably take the Rabbits to cover. At the end of the day, they're good. The only thing I would say is I know Eck has been the offensive coordinator for South Dakota State, has been being looked at by a couple of job openings. Maybe that means he was distracted and the offensive game plan isn't as solid as it should be, but I think their defense is going to be good enough that they're not going to need the offense hitting on all cylinders to necessarily win this game. I think they can win this with kind of a half, butted offensive game plan this week. I just think, I don't know. I think South Dakota State wins. I think Nova gives them a fight. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. It's definitely going to be the closest game, but yeah, I'll take the Rabbits in this one. It's boring to say we're going to have literally in the semifinals.
Parity is dead.
We're going to have a rematch of the 2018 national title or 2019 national title. And then we're going to have a rematch of the 2020 national title in the semi round. It's like, it's wild to say, but like, I think that's what's going to happen.
If it goes that route, that's the name of the podcast. So I appreciate you. I honestly have been trying to think of something unique, but that will be it. It will be the, just say the 2019, 2020 national title repeats or whatever I'm going to come up with.
2019 plus 2020 equals 2021 semifinals or something. Yeah.
I think just one thing Jax fans should be aware of, and NDSU fans, Sam Houston fans, anybody. I just think people don't realize that. I really do think Villanova's defense is better than it gets credit for. I mean, the CAA, it's not a cakewalk. It's not the easiest competition. James Madison, that's a team that nobody really wants to play. They're a good team, and obviously Villanova got a win against them. Total defense for Villanova is third in the country. They're third overall, which is very impressive. That's ahead of the slots of North Dakota State. It's one head of a slot of NDSU. It's 2 head slots ahead of James Madison. Rushing defense, 10th overall in the nation. So that's the thing is Nova. I really like the comment here by, I think it was Chad. Or no, it's Patrick. I think they're kind of built like you and I. They'll play anyone in the nation close. I think that's true. I think the defense is going to keep Villanova no matter what in this game. Mm-hmm. Jamie has said it best. He says, Daniel Smith, the quarterback for Villanova, is Jekyll and Hyde. Like one game, he's Tom Brady, and the next game, he's that rookie you drafted in the 7th round on Madden that's like 52 overall. He says, and we saw against Holy Cross, he was the 52 overall Madden rookie. He was bad. So what does that look like? What's the game look like, my man? I'll keep talking, but what's the score? I apologize, I don't have it on.
It looks like James Madison just scored another touchdown. It's getting reviewed. Okay. Kind of got hit and fell sideways out of bounds, so maybe didn't cross the goal line, but like if they call it back, like James Madison's ball's on the inch line, so call it 21-3, it's over. Here's an interesting point. Like we talked about, this was the major story going into this year, right? And I know it's not over, so this like bring the eggs out could be on my face here in just 24 hours. If Sam Houston wins, James Madison wins, South Dakota State wins, and North Dakota State wins, where are these rest versus rust people?
Yeah.
Because, they were talking about it in this. James Madison, this is their 21st game in a calendar year. They're playing Montana, who played 2 games in the spring and didn't play anybody in this fall. You're looking at Montana State, who played 0 games in the spring. They're playing Sam Houston State, have played 21 or 22 as well, because they went all the way to the title game. I know they purposely only played 10 this year. But let's bring the rest versus rust up argument. Does this settle it that like if Montana or James Madison holds on and Sam Houston beats the Bobcats, this rust thing or rest thing did not matter. Like I'm not saying every spring we should ever play football again, but I'm saying like all the people that said I think it's going to be a bigger deal than people are talking about. Well, we're in the playoffs, and what teams other than Montana State even advanced to the second round? Are there any?
Yeah, I gotta give you credit and Kyler credit as well. I mean, you guys say this a lot more than me. I'm more reliant on those outside factors, and I think they matter. But hey, I'm obviously proving quite a bit. It's starting to show because of strength and conditioning and talent and recruiting. Those outside factors in terms of travel and in terms of rest in the spring and how far did you go in the spring playoffs doesn't really appear to matter. Just the better teams are just winning. The only real thing that could have a huge factor is just a vicious home crowd, right? Like you could get thrown off your game a little bit, but what's that worth? A field goal maybe for Vegas? Maybe 2 points?
That's why home field advantage is 3 points.
Yeah.
So whenever you see a spread, like that's it. Add 3 to the home team. Basically, that's what if they're actually neck and neck or not on a neutral field. Like,
I think Vegas will put if it's Sam Houston, South Dakota State, NDSU, JMU. I'm very confident Vegas is going to put those lines at 2.5 for both of them, like coin flip. So like have to pick a winner.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into the next weeks, especially because it hasn't happened yet. And like I said, even more chances for eggs on the face. Like, let's say Montana State, Nova, and ETSU win next week, and then Montana pulls off this upset. Man, you'll have some people tweeting this episode back out at us. I feel safe. That won't be the case, but
I'm gonna go on the limb. Call me biased. I really don't care. Vegas and other people agree with me. Confidently say James Madison's about to win, and very confident NDSU will win tomorrow. Those other two, I'm not going to make some sort of like guarantee in terms of let's look forward, right? I'm very confident in Sam Houston, but that doesn't mean I'm going to make a guarantee. I really think ETSU is going to run into a buzzsaw just because of matchup and other factors. So
then let's just put it this way. I mean, obviously we don't know what the NDSU James Madison game would look like, and I don't want to get too far ahead.
Yep.
But then is the benefit in that case like better for those other teams because they've experienced that close playoff game, that rush of like it's win or done. Like you look at Incarnate Word, Sam Houston State, 7 points. Montana State, UT Martin, like I said, closer than that 26-7 kind of, but either way, whatever. Bobcats probably aren't advancing. Villanova, Holy Cross, that's a 5-point game.
Right.
Sacramento State, Sac State, 5-point games. Like they've been tested. Then you look, James Madison, 59-20 and about to probably blow out the Grizz. ETSU was challenged against Kennesaw, but like we said, we're pretty sure North Dakota State's probably going to beat them. And though Southern Illinois was probably challenging in more senses than the scoreboard for North Dakota State, just because they are kind of a physical Missouri Valley team. Like at the end of the day, it's a 31-point win. So they'll probably be pretty well rested headed into ETSU. So, I mean, do you think it in the playoffs, there's an advantage to kind of like we saw with Sam Houston last year, having those close games? Is that a benefit, or do you think just playing in all cylinders is going to benefit somebody better?
Boy, you could always say scenario. I think I would take the all cylinders for sure, but there's nothing wrong with being battle tested in terms of, I would say battle test in terms of more getting punched in the mouth a little bit. That throws you off your style. You know what I mean? Because
having to adjust.
Yeah, Sam Houston, JMU, others, they're going to take your best thing away, and you better be able to figure it out. So, I mean, that's really where the battle test comes in. I don't think Southeastern Louisiana was remotely capable of taking James Madison's best stuff away. Obviously, Montana here because of injuries or a different story, but like Southern Illinois did not take what NDSU wants to do away. ETSU will have no ability to take away NDSU's run game for 50 straight times in a row. So, like, that's where I'm like, are you really tested? So it's just so unique, man. I really, if the games are what we think they could be in terms of our current projections, I have no clue how to pick between the games in terms of if you line them up and look at the teams and look at the strengths and look at the weaknesses. Like if it was Sam Houston, NDSU, JMU, that is so tough. You might have to just say home field, like honestly. And that sounds like, oh, here comes the Bison guy thinking the dome will matter. but it might just be that they're just a little more comfortable. But if
didn't
you wanted to
James
give me
Madison beat you in the dome in
oh yeah,
16,
for sure.
right?
Yep.
So if there was a team that could do it, I think they said Maloney was on the team in 16 too. So he's been to the dome. But I mean, I agree with you. Like, that's one guy.
Yeah, I think 2016, even with the dome, I hate to be the Kyler of here, but JMU was just a better team. NDSU, they had lost like Nick DeLuca, their stud linebacker, Nate Tangway, their defensive end. Like they had lost a few other guys, and JMU had injuries and suspensions too. But JMU was just a better team, just straight up. Like they were executing better on offense. They were more balanced. Their defense was ferocious. So we're gonna see that all week on Twitter if NDSU wins. You're gonna see it a lot. Just like we saw with the Grizz fans. Hey, going to be just like 08. Well, guess what? There's been a lot of time and a lot of changes. So NDSU, James Madison, I don't think these rosters are remotely comparable for either team in 2016. I think 2016 offense for NDSU had a lot of issues. Their defense had a lot of injuries. James Madison offense 2016 was a freaking monster on a beast running game with Brian Shore, who was shifty and just guys making plays. And their defense was fast, ferocious, big. I'm not saying they're not that now, but I think there's deficiencies in NDSU's passing game. I think James Madison's offensive line in the dome will be a major liability. Cole Johnson ain't shifty. He's not Brian Shore. NDSU, you don't have those big stout linebackers that you had in 2016. You've got more fast, athletic guys. How does that bode? These coaches, do you trust Matt Entz? Do you trust Signetti? Signetti in situations, Sam Houston, not putting a spy on Trey Lance. Do you trust him? Because I trust Mike Houston. So I'm glad I was able to say this because I'm going to screenshot it and post it on Twitter 7,000 times this week. In terms of don't compare this to 5 years ago. The reason JMU can come in and win is they have things that ECU got. So that's my personal opinion on that one.
Yeah.
But
so I have an interesting take on this. Obviously, we're in the middle at Idaho of a coaching hunt. And I'm more of I want a defensive guy. So I'm just going to kind of quiz this by you because you started bringing it up like Signetti versus Mike Houston, which is kind of part of my thing. So since 2010, since the title game has been in Frisco, do you know how many offensive coaches have coached in it? Like, where the head coach is an offensive guy, and how many times they've won the title?
It's got to be just I don't know it on Delaware and Eastern Washington with just because the FCS didn't start till 2011. So I'm not sure what happened in 2010, but I had to say it, right? Mike Houston in 2016, obviously play caller, right? And
yeah, but he's defensive.
Oh yeah. So has it ever happened?
So there's been 22 teams play, right? That was 11 years ago. There have been five offensive coaches that have coached in it. Bo Baldwin for Eastern Washington, Aaron Best for Eastern Washington, Rob Ambrose for Towson, John Gross from JSU, former, and then Kirk Signetti for James Madison.
Oh, I apologize. I misheard your question. I thought it was like who has won it. Who's won the title instead of
just
be there.
Bo Baldwin.
Okay.
In 2010 too. So it's been 11 years since an offensive coach has won that. And you brought up, Matt Entz, Mike Houston, trusting those guys. So that kind of spoils it. 5 coaches, 1 title. That means there are 17 defensive coaches. Well, the coach has been a defensive guy 17 times, and they've won 10 of the titles. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, that makes sense because it's North Dakota State. Yes, Craig Bull, Chris Kleiman, and Matt Entz are defensive guys. But also you have Casey Keeler twice, once with Delaware, once with Sam Houston State. You have Brock Spack with Illinois State. You have Mike Houston with James Madison. You have Bo Pelini with the Penguins. And then obviously you have John Stegelmeyer with SDSU last year. So it's not just NDSU. So everyone's going to be like, oh, well, that's because of NDSU. It's like the same thing with the NFL. Well, it's Bill Belichick. Yeah, but you have Pete Carroll. You have Mike Tomlin. You have Jim Harbaugh. Or John Harbaugh. I just think I personally trust defensive coaches, and you nailed it because I feel like defensive coaches are able to kind of pull that 1,000-mile view on a game and be more analytical. Where offensive coaches, I feel like, get more emotional and like, I need to make this call, I need to do this, I need to do that. Which I think you saw with Kirk Signetti and how James Madison or Sam Houston came back, where Casey Keeler was able to step back, look at the game as a whole picture and analyze it. So I'll tell you right now, if that is the case, I'm taking the defensive coaches to advance. That's kind of where I've learned while writing this piece on why I want a defensive hire. I was like, holy crap, defenses in the quarterfinals this year, 4 offensive, 4 defensive. So it's like defensive guys still win, and they win at a high level, especially at the FCS. Even at the FBS, you look at the college football playoff, 3 of the 4 coaches are defensive guys, in Luke Fickell, Nick Saban, and Kirby Smart. So it's like, defense, man. I'll take a defensive guy every day of the week. So you want me to ask me who's going to advance? Like if the semifinals are what we predicted on the show, I'm taking NDSU over Kirk Cignetti, and I'm taking Casey Keeler or Stegelmeyer, because either one of them could win. I think you get that rematch from last year. It's still the quarterback issues for SDSU. I'd probably take Sam Houston to advance, but I want to see how all of those teams play before I make those permanent written in ink.
Yeah, I like that. I also like. If you wanted me to give a basic breakdown, I'll say this on the podcast this week, between if it is those matchups of what we think it could be, I really think it will come down to 3 basic factors, and I'm even discounting home field advantage here. The coaching game plan and how the players execute it. So like who comes up with the better ability to take advantage of very few weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. There's number 1. Number 2 is just turnovers. Pretty basic. That's what would give Cole Johnson a short field to make 2 passes quick, and they're in the end zone in comparison to having to go 80 yards on NDSU. And then the third thing for me is just going to be experience in the core areas. So like, who's got the freshmen, who's got the seniors, who's got the guys who have been through the grinder a little bit. And I'm really excited to look at that for all the rosters instead of just obviously NDSU I know pretty well. I've been looking at JMU, but SDSU very seasoned, Sam Houston very seasoned. So like where between JMU, NDSU, Sam Houston, South Dakota State, if that's the matchup, guys, again, if that's the matchup.
Villanova and the Bobcats have a shot for sure.
For sure. Yep. Villanova,
and
Bobcats.
Even ETSU, maybe. But like James Montana, I think, is just getting railed even worse behind me. So Montana's out. James Madison has advanced.
Yep.
So
they're gone.
There's 6 teams left. And all 6 teams have a shot. Obviously, that's why we play the game. But yeah, you're right. Like if I had to pick one, Villanova's the seed. Obviously, they should win, which is a whole nother subplot. Can you imagine if South Dakota State advances to the semifinals, beating 2 seeded teams and not being seeded?
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. They have the talent to do it. The thing with Villanova, I would ask. I want to ask this now because we didn't talk about it on the podcast. I think it comes down to Chris Oladoku. Can I say his name right? I always butcher it.
I thought it was Oladokin, but I could be totally rocked too.
But the fans who are listening now, who listen to the podcast, know I butcher last names. So I'll just say the QB Chris from Dakota State. And I pronounce you right for the entire podcast over the spring until like the finale. But that being said, how will South Dakota State's passing game be? Because I think Villanova, as crazy as it sounds, I think they're going to have success defensively, slowing down Strong and Davis way better than what South Dakota State has experienced in the first 2 rounds. So how will South Dakota State's passing game be? Because that will open up the field for them to do what they want, because Villanova really is going to key in a little bit. And he's a talented player. I'm not downplaying him at all. I don't think he's as good as Gronowski, even as a redshirt senior. I don't care. Gronowski was a different swag. But yeah. Oh, here we go. Chad. Background. Come on, Chad.
Dokun.
Oh my gosh. I still can't even get it when I'm reading that. Chad's like, you're so dumb, Matt. You're so dumb.
Dokun.
Oladokin.
Yeah, so I said it right.
That really good transfer QB for South Dakota.
Yeah, Samford.
Yeah, like a Smith. Get a Smith. Get a Johnson for like a QB at South Dakota State. Well, we'll know Gronowski for the next 3 years. That being said, I'm very interested to see South Dakota State's passing offense versus Villanova. I'm very interested to see Villanova's passing offense versus South Dakota State. That to me is the factor. At South Dakota State, which is a top tier rush defense, right behind Villanova a little bit in the total rankings, they will be able to stop them. They'll be able to stop back and forth. Who's going to be able to pass to open that game up? I'm really excited to see that. I would trust South Dakota State's play calling a little better. They're very creative, but I don't know. It's in Villanova. Could be fun. So, and Chad says you nailed it, man. Congrats. You went to
Oladokin.
Like, Matt, you're so dumb. You're so dumb.
So I'll just reiterate. out of every pick I gave today, South Dakota State is definitely the least confident, just because not because I don't have faith in South Dakota State, despite what some people in Brookings think. It's more like I said, I have watched zero Villanova because I don't have flow. I didn't watch any of their early season games, and I just did not watch them last week against Holy Cross because there's so many other good games on. So, unfortunately, I just don't know much about the Wildcats other than they beat James Madison. And I've seen a couple highlights, but like everybody looks good in a highlight tape. That's the point of a highlight tape. You can watch games where you lose and you look good in the highlight tape. So I just don't know enough about Villanova. They're kind of that team I just thought would either figure itself out all year. They'd either play really good and be a seed, which they were, or they'd slump off and I could say, well, they're just one of those CAA teams that's really high and falls off. Unfortunately, it bit me in the ass because I should know about them now, and I just don't. So we'll see.
We'll see, right? That's why they play the game or whatever.
That's why they play the games.
I'm really excited, man. I want to reiterate again. I picked Montana to win this game, and I wanted James Madison to win. I'm really happy the Dukes are gonna maybe come back to Fargo if NDSU wins. That I'm excited that is a possibility right now because I want to see it one last time between those squads. I want the Dome to be crazy. And, if James Madison beats NDSU, goes to them, and then my good buddies, Jamie Lawrence, they'll all be really happy. So that's, it's a good silver lining.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm really bummed about this game. I just want to say one more time to everybody. I just thought, I'm not saying Montana would have won. Do not take this as I'm me saying Montana would have won. I'm just sad that I thought this game would be closer. And let's be realistic, it would be. Because AMU's not playing clean. Like, their O-line is not doing the best. They're having turnovers. They're not playing clean. I just think it would have been a classic game at least, all the way to the fourth. So I'm disappointed Friday night turned into this. But I'm also happy that we're doing this show because this is more fun than watching a game where you have an injured quarterback and it gets off the rails, right?
It was perfect because I got off work. I'm in Mountain Time, so the game had already kicked off, or kicking off as I was leaving work. And Matt goes, "Hey, are we streaming tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, on my way home. We usually go live about 7:30, but we could go earlier." And then Matt was like, "It's okay. Let's see how the game plays out anyways. It'd be more fun." This was perfect. Like, go at halftime. We had a pretty good hunch what was going to happen, and now we're looking like geniuses because it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to end the show because we're at the 50-minute mark on kind of what you hinted at when we started talking. And I want our 22 concurrent listeners right now, or viewers, whatever that they're called, weigh in. NDSU versus James Madison. Are you rooting for one of the most, I know Montana's one of the most hated fan bases as well, but you've got one of the most hated fan bases in North Dakota State playing a team who is bailing on the FCS. Who does the average FCS fan root for? I know we got some jackrabbits. Like, are they able to swallow their pride and say, yeah, you're right, I want NDSU to beat them. I don't care. They'll lose to Sam Houston State or us in the championship game. I don't care. But they better beat James Madison. Or are people just that can't stand NDSU fans? They don't know what bad football looks like, et cetera, that they're pulling for the team that's bailing on us. Because, like I said, I'm the opposite of Matt. I picked James Madison to win this game, but I'm rooting for Montana because I just don't want a team to win our trophy and walk away with it. Like, to me, that's embarrassing.
Right. I'll get you, Chris. I'm going to bounce off you, but Chad says, are Packers going to win off the bye? Yeah, they're playing the Bears. Bears are trash, man. Patrick says, answer that question. There you go, Patrick. Bears are going to lose. Packers will win the game easily. So, yeah, that really is the question, Chris. If I was not an NDSU fan, NDSU,
which you're
only
unbiased. So,
right. I don't know if I'd want that NDSU. I think I would think this. I would think it would be with NDSU likely having many more shots at titles. Probably they're not going anywhere for probably a decade. I think I'd let JMU or Sam Houston nab one and then just be cocky for 365 days on social media. And when they're playing a Sun Belt, how many times are they really going to pop into the comments and say, just never forget we won and left? Once in a while. But NDSU fans, it's like saying they're forever. So if I'm outside looking in, I would never want a team leaving to win it. But then I want them to get beat by like Villanova or ETSU, not freaking North Dakota State, just because it's been so gross. You know what I mean? Like if NDSU won like 4 titles over 10 years, whatever. But 8 out of 10 is nasty. Is it going to be 9 out of 11? I mean, that's even worse. So
we got 2 quality teams in Villanova, South Dakota State, or Sam Houston or Montana State that very well could be the NDSU the next week in Frisco. I'm just saying, I'd love if James Madison doesn't get a taste of Frisco one last time. Like, they get to watch it on TV, and they all get to be like, remember how fun that was? I can't wait to be in Jonesboro, Arkansas, playing Ark State next year. I cannot wait. Or Orlando, Florida, or the Mobile, Alabama Bowl. Like, it sound like I'm hating on bowl games. I personally love them. But I'm saying, like, I would love if we actually had the FCS title game be teams that are committed to the FCS. Just like next year, I know JSU is not leaving this year like James Madison is. I'm definitely not rooting for JSU in any games next year. Sorry about it. I know we have tons of JSU fans, just like James Madison. It's going to be hit to our page. We hope you guys stick around because you do love the whole brand of football. Those are 2 of our more active fan bases. It's going to stink to lose them. But bet your butt I'm not rooting for any FCS Baylors to win a single game. But, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. I guess at this point, like, if you're an outsider, South Dakota State, Villanova, Montana State, rah, let's go. I mean, let's root for a newbie. We'll admit, like, last year, getting to see a team lift it for the first time was very cool. We would have gotten it either way, but it was a cool experience. We all talked about, like, having a stress-free Frisco. It's always stress-free for me. But
hey, and we're walking on the field no matter what to take a group photo. So like
every year
whoever wins the title.
Yeah, last year we weren't allowed to, but next year for sure. And then the year before that, you know, I feel like you went on, and I think like the rest of us felt bad for Lawrence because, man, he really was pulling for JMU that day, and he was a little heartbroken. But this year I gave
him the biggest hug right after the interception. We embraced for like 60 seconds and just complimented, and he's like, "Just go storm." That was sad, man. That's tough to see.
God, now I almost want Brandon or I want Lawrence to get his. Dang it.
Oh, we'll have to see how it goes. To me personally, NDSU has their own issues. I don't think they're glaring anymore, but James Madison has issues. Sam Houston has here you go. NDSU has maybe some passing efficiency issues. James Madison has some offensive line and running game issues, and Sam Houston has some secondary pass game issues. And South Dakota State, honestly, is probably the team where you're like, I see the least amount of issues. Villanova, how consistent is their quarterback? There's some issues. Montana State doesn't really have a good passing game. There's an issue. ETSU, very young, new, fresh off the block, relies too heavily on the running game. And then, of course, you look at Montana. They're about to be eliminated. It's irrelevant. But all those teams, who takes advantage and who is tweaking their game plan enough to make their weaknesses maybe a little bit of a strength? That's how this is going to play out. Everybody's too good at this point for it not to play out that way. So execution and game plan, man. We'll see.
Yep. All right, that's it. So solid plug, everybody. If we talked about this last week, if your team is not in it, it does not matter. Go to Frisco. It is so much fun. Obviously, we've all done it for a couple of years in a row now. It's always a blast. It's just fun to meet people. It is the FCS's bowl game. It's time for everybody from the FCS to go. If you can't do it this year, because I get, we're less than a month out now. Holy smokes. Like, buy your tickets now for next year, or your plane tickets, your hotels, because they do kind of get expensive when the teams start looking more and more close, because obviously how many Montana fans probably booked a hotel in Frisco and are probably going to be returning them. So tomorrow would be a great day to call some hotels for who canceled. But just try to do it because it's so much fun, and we just want to share that love with everybody. And once again, got all these shows to listen to. We always appreciate you guys ending your week here on the Friday Night FCS pregame. And with that, that's it. We'll see you guys. Well, Matt will see you guys here in a couple days covering the FCS, and we'll have our semifinal matchups, and then we'll be back next Friday talking, the show, and then we'll see if the game maybe gets pushed to Friday. Until then, it was good talking to you guys. Boom.
Boom.